Okay, everybody, we are going to go ahead and construct page 3, and just as a reminder, page 3 is going to be the same as page 6. The only thing that's going to be different is how we install it, and that's going to be based on the way that the book opens. I want this to open away from the spine, so on page 3 it's going to go in this way, and then on page 6 I believe it's going to go in the opposite way. But it doesn't really matter right now because we're not going to actually install it on the pocket page, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So as I pointed out in page 2, page 2 through 7 I built, and I thought I was recording, I wasn't. So I'm going to rebuild this element with my pink cardstock so you'll know how to make it for page 3 and for page 6. So with that, I'm going to show you what it does. It is going to be a pop mechanism. So the pieces that you'll need to construct it is an 8.5 by 6. So this is 8.5 by 6. You're going to score 1/2 inch along the 8.5 inch side. Then you're going to just need a flat piece of 8 by 6. And I accidentally scored. You don't need to do that. 8 by 6. You're going to attach this to the 8 by 6 and make basically an 8 by 6 card. And I'm doing this with 2 pieces of paper because I don't have any paper that is 16 inches wide. If you did, you could just score it in half. So I'm going to sit down and we are going to build this. Whoops, not the pick tool. I don't see where it is. Oh my goodness, I'm always mislaying something. Well, shoot. I'll use something else for the short term. So I don't know how I did it, how I managed to record or build all those pages before I realized that I hadn't hit the record button, but it is what it is. I saved these pink ones and use them for inspiration when I'm building other albums, so I kind of have a whole stash of these that I go back to. This is one that I hadn't built and stored, so even though I've used this element before, I don't have it in my sort of go-to bag when I'm trying to come up with new albums and need a little inspiration. So this is sort of my mock-up bag for my 8x10s. I've got another one just like it for my 8x8s. Okay, so now as you can see, I've added it here, and so basically we have this big card that the finished face of it is 8x6. So now we're going to need one more piece of cardstock, and it is going to measure 9 by 6. So it's 9 inches by 6 inches. You're going to score it 1/2 inch, 4.5, and 8.5. And then you're going to fold these score lines back and do this. So it's going to look like this when you're finished. Now you're going to open your card up. You're going to place the scored edge, the center score, to the edge of the card. You're going to tuck these score flange down, and then you're going to close the book to adhere it, and then when you open it, it'll have that pop mechanism. So I'm going to go ahead and add my tape real quick, and you'll see in just a moment what I'm doing. So if you build this, go ahead and build 2 because it is really not directional. You can turn it around, and then you'll have the one you need for page 6 as well. All right, so that's done. I need to find that pick tool. Here it is. I was just looking right past it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my tape off one side, and I'm going to place the tape on the downside. So first I'm going to come to the edge and marry this center score line up with the edge, like so. And then I'm going to try to get my fingers out of the way without letting it shift. And so now you can see we've got half of it in. Okay, so now this is the easy part. You take the tape off and you just hold the card in place while you close the flap on it, like so. And that's it. So that's the mechanism for page 3 and page 6. So make 2 of these. And like I said, the only thing that's going to change is whether or not it opens to the left or to the right. We're not going to install this on page 3. here is my page 3. We're not going to install it because it's going to get centered on page 3, and I have to put my designer cardstock in first. So go ahead and build these and then set it aside, and then we're going to decorate the base, and then we'll pull this back in. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so that is it for page 3 and page 6 mechanism. Okay, now we are on to page 3, and these are the papers that I've picked out for the covers. So the first thing we're going to do is lay down the large mat, and then remember we've got this pop-up mechanism, and it's going to get installed right on top. And I'm not sure yet. I hope I have enough scraps to actually put something behind this. So I'm going to plan to make this a pocket, meaning I'm only going to adhere 3 of the 4 sides down. And even if I don't have anything to put in the pocket at this point, I can save that space for a photo mat for pictures when the time comes. So the first thing we're going to do is lay down, and I was just checking the orientation. This is the right way up. Lay down this large mat. And if you recall, we used this pattern on page 2. So I like to pull at least one of the patterns and use it on both pages, just to create some unity across the layout or the spread. Of course, I just cleaned this mat to get all the glue off of it from accidents like that. And what's the first thing I do is I drop one. That's just the way it goes. Okay. Okay, there we go. And now this is going to get laid down like so. We want it to open, so this is page 3, page 2 is over here, spine, and then there's the outside of the pocket. We want this to open away from the spine, so make sure you've got your orientation right. I've got my words upside down. Oh, and I've got a magnet, which I don't need. I think I put that there to remind me of something, but I'm not going to use a magnet here. We are going to do a magnet, just not right here, because we're going to have a pocket. So I have small and large magnets, and I've used large magnet on page 1 because the top part, which had all the moving parts in it, was so heavy. And I'm going to actually use a large magnet here because the magnet has to go through so many layers. When you have this pop-up mechanism, you're going to have 3 layers of paper here, designer, and then the cardstock. Same thing here. Well, actually 2, because I'm not going to line the back side, and 2, and then something else here. So I'm going to try first 2 large magnets and see if that's going to help, and it may not be enough. I may have to actually use 3 magnets. So I'm going to put a magnet on the last page, and then a magnet on the first page. And then I'm going to stuff it full of papers to simulate what it's going to be like with all the designer papers down, and see if these large magnets are going to be strong enough or if I have to add a 3rd magnet. Okay. I know it'll go through the cardstock right now. I'm just not confident that it will go through all the layers of designer paper. Okay, so there's the magnets, 1 on each side. It's pretty straightforward. It gets a lot more complicated if we have to add a 3rd magnet, but we'll see. We shall see. So I know I'm going to need cardstock here, 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 and here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of paper. So it doesn't matter which 4 pieces you get, just pick up 4 pieces of paper and 4 small pieces so you can close your book. So there'll be a piece here and a piece on the flip side. So there's two. And then there'll be two more down here. And it's still grabbing, so that's going to be fine. The two large magnets are going to work. Okay, I just pull out my... There we go. Okay, so that's in. I'm just going to center this here, and then like I said, I'm only going to adhere 3 of the 4 sides. Again, I want to make sure my orientation is correct. Let's see, this is 6 inches, 8 inches, so I want to come down 1 inch. And there it is. Okay, there it is. So that should be centered. Pretty close to it. All right, and for the cover of this, I'm going to do some color blocking. I'm going to do that. And then I am going to put some sort of a feature here. I'm not going to do that right now. Right now we just want to get the pieces in, and I'll worry about adding the features later. I'm going to add the 2 small strips and then trim down the center piece to fit. I think it's close, but I think it's a little too big. And we'll find out in just a minute. Okay, there. I'm gonna have to black that out with a Sharpie. I'm just making sure they're both going the same direction before I lay it down. The pattern, that is. Oh, my dog wants some attention. Okay. So let's see. This looks like... a little over 1/8 of an inch. A little bit more. There we go. Ink it, and then before I glue it, I'm gonna grab a marker and black that out. That was just a note for while we were building the base. Okay, I just marked out that little bit that's gonna be exposed. The rest of it will be covered, like so. Okay. Okay, there it is. And we have a pocket here. So in addition to the pop-up mechanism, we've got a pocket back here. So depending on how I do with my scraps, I may put something, I'm gonna put something in here either way. It just may be a blank, a photo mat. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this in here as a reminder. And then the next thing is we need to cover the inside of our pop mechanism. Let me get organized and I'll be right back. All right, everybody, we're on to page 3. So we've got all the A sides done. So we're ready to work on the B sides. And here's the patterns that I chose that are going to go inside. I've inked and trimmed everything, so should go right in. And I just want these 2 patterns to line up, so I'm making sure they're going the same direction. I think I mentioned it in the last video, but we are now carrying this pick tool in stock. So if you guys are looking to get one or having trouble locating them, we now have them in our Staples tools section of the website. In addition to that, I will provide a direct link in the description below, as I normally do for all the supplies that are used in this tutorial. And I also want to remind you guys that I'm actually using 2 DCEs for this album. Two DCEs, yep. Because it's a big one. 8.5 by 10.5. It's a large album. So it needs lots of paper. You know what? That looks like I didn't cut it straight, so I'm going to hold off on that one. And lay that down. Okay, let's see if it fits better here. Yes, it does. So I'm not sure what was not working, but it's gonna work here. Okay, and then this is our last piece. All right, and it looks like I forgot to ink it, at least on that end. Yep, just that one end. I like it, I like it. Lovely, lovely. I think this is a fun feature. So there's a black here, and you can trim out a piece and cover that if that bothers you, seeing all this black cardstock down here. I might do that, but I'm not gonna do it until I'm finished with everything else and make sure I have enough paper left over. Now, I'm gonna remind you guys that there is a pocket here too. So I am going to find a piece of cardstock to stick in there so I don't forget about it. And later, when we're done with most of the album, I will come back. I think this might be too big. come back and see what I have left over to cover some, an insert. Okay. All right, I'm just going to stick this in here, and this is just to help me remember that I've got something I can, a card that I can add some designer paper to and get some more photo space out of. All right, so that is the end of page 3. And I'll just show that to you real quick again. And then we've got the pocket. And again, I may come back and cover that if I've got enough of one of these 2 patterns to cover it. And I'm going to wait and do that later. And if I do decide to cover it, I will point it out in the walkthrough. So this is kind of a simple image. There's not much going on here. And the page next to it looks like so. And I'm going to embellish this, but I'm going to do that offline, and you guys will have to see that in the walkthrough. But it's likely that I am going to use some of these cards that I cut apart, or elements that are from the cut aparts or chipboard. So I haven't decided what I'm doing there yet, but I will do some embellishing. So that's the end of page 3. And I've rough trimmed, so you guys are going to have to be patient with me. I've got some color blocking that's going on there, so it's too hard to trim everything in advance of laying at least part of it down with glue. So it'll go a little bit slower, but it's a mirror, so really if you get through one page, it's the same thing on the opposite. Page 4, same as 5, only a mirror. Okay, and then I'm going to slide this right inside. So when you open it, you don't see all that black cardstock. Okay, it looks good. And then what you have poking out right here is something that I'm going to cover with cards, with designer cardstock after I've finished everything else. I just want to leave it there to remind me that there is in fact a pocket there, and that we can put a photo mat in there. Okay, so that's the end of page 3. I'll be back with page 4 and 5.